Hi, and welcome to Plead the Cause, brought to you by Heart of the Bride Ministries, where we're pleading the cause of orphaned and vulnerable children around the world, and even right here in the panhandle of Florida. My name is Brian Chrisman. I'm the executive director of Heart of the Bride, and once again, I'm your host today because our normal host, Tommy, is in Zambia right now, where he is preparing, he and his wife, to enter the mission field in October of 2024. So he's already over there doing some preliminary work, getting ready and getting to know the ministry. So he's over there. You can be praying for Tommy and his wife, Helena, as they get ready for that. In a few weeks on a future episode, they're going to be sharing about their journey. But we're here today to pick up where we left off. If you were watching our last podcast or listening to our last one, we started with Alec and Victoria's adoption story, but we really only covered the part, which is good. We wanted to do that. But today we're going to pick up and actually get into the adoption. So welcome back, Alec and Victoria. How are you today?
We're good.
Very good.
Good. Well, that's great. So if you just happen to be picking up on this episode today, I do recommend that you go back and listen to or watch the previous one. But you can also pick up here today because we're going to start with Alec and Victoria were fostering, and then how they proceeded into adoption. Victoria is my daughter, and so and Alec then, of course, is my son-in-law. So I'm very glad to have them on today and to continue this story. So where we left off, you guys were fostering. We didn't share all the stories. There are a lot of different stories, but we talked about fostering, how God led you to it, how people supported you in that, and what was meaningful to you, and how that worked. But let's go ahead and get to, and we can go now. We can say his name, that it's all official. Jonathan Stapp. How did you guys, you're fostering? How did you guys then come to the realization that God was calling you to adopt Jonathan?
Okay, so that's actually a really cool part of our story with him, because so we had gotten to know him a little bit because he was with Seth Seitz, who is a guy that currently goes to our former church, y'all's church still. But we'd known him a little bit and gotten to just through serving and just being around, seeing him.
And also, you guys had him for babysitting, and I think y'all kept him for...
Well, should I tell that part of the story first?
Yeah.
I know I hate to be the one to talk because I want people to hear from you. But, so what was funny, or what was cool is, so we all knew Seth, and, Seth was a single guy who was fostering at one point 6 kids. I mean, it's crazy because he works from home and he was able to do it. But he was also a part of the worship band at our church. And so we, were at that point really becoming convicted that we needed to be helping foster families in the area. And so knowing Seth, I was like, Seth, what can we do? And he said, well, on Thursday nights when I'm on worship band, I can't bring the kids with me, because he was, and that was tough. He said, would you, could you just help watch the kids? And so we were like, yeah. So I went over just about every Thursday he was on the worship band. And then, Sonia, my wife, went with me. Sometimes it was our daughters, your sisters, because you were already married and had kids. Other daughters, Brody, our oldest bio son, went with me. I mean, we just kind of all went over there. Daniel, our youngest, would go and he would play, with them. But so we started doing that, and that's how we met. Now, at that time, his name was Liam. So we met Liam. He ended up staying with Seth the longest. And so towards the end, when Seth only had a few kids, we did keep Liam overnight, and had him for Mother's Day one year when I think Seth's daughter was graduating from a college graduation on Mother's Day. So we had Liam overnight for a full day. And so, we all got to know him. And so what's funny is, so Sonia and I were getting to know him. So this was last year, 2022, and began to have real deep conversations about Liam. And, it started with me thinking, okay, this kid needs to be in a family. The system was already moving to terminate parental rights. And so we knew he was going to be an adoption, sole goal of adoption. And so I was already kind of thinking that. And then Sonia said, man, I just really feel like Liam needs a mother. That was the burden that was kind of welling up in her. And then, she said those magic words one day, which was, or the question, should we think about adopting Liam? And I was like, I'm game if you are. Let's start praying. So we start praying about that. And then you pick up on your side of the story. What was happening on your side?
Yeah, it was kind of a similar thing. So obviously, like, we were fostering and I was also pregnant. So we went through kind of a lot of back and forth where we're like, okay, we'll take another placement. And then for some reason, well, I mean, it was the Lord. It was definitely the Lord. Like, all of them got cut very short. And so then at one point, it was after you guys had him for that time. And like, just, we were thinking about Liam at the time. And I started by myself praying about potentially like talking to Alec about like being open to adopting him. And then you were doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. And then one day we were just like in the kitchen cooking or something. And Alec was like, just brought up, hey, this is something I've been praying about. I think we need to talk about it, about like seeing if Liam's even like up for adoption, if that's even a thing. And I was like, oh man, I have been too. So it was just definitely a God thing. Like, I don't believe in coincidences. I definitely think it was just the Lord putting it on all of our hearts then at that point. So then eventually, I can't even remember how we started talking about it with you guys.
Well, you told Sonia, all right, your mom. Yeah. And so then Sonia came to me and she was like, you're never going to believe what Victoria told me today. And so, when she said it, we immediately were like, well, we think then it's pretty obvious Liam at the time is supposed to be in our family. Mm-hmm. So, we were pretty quickly like, okay, he could be our son or our grandson. That is so weird to say, but we're fine either way. And then I think it was in a week or two, y'all were over here and we just all had a conversation about it. And that's kind of what we said. It was like, wow, we've been praying about it too. So, I mean, we're fine either way, right? Of course, for you, he could either be your son or your brother. So
yeah,
that's so weird.
Oh, that's even weirder.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So, but and then of course, we're older, obviously, and then you guys have younger kids. I think I started feeling pretty early on. Sonia and I both did. Like, okay, what we feel like is that God was just saying through all of us that this boy is a part of your family. And so we didn't care either way, how he did it. We just knew, and I think early on that it was going to be you guys to adopt him. It just made more sense. Sometimes God gives us common sense for a reason. I think, I think that was definitely part of it. So for us, it was awesome. And when you guys told us that you're really moving towards it, I mean, that was, I don't know. I just already felt like he was our son or our grandson. Like he was a part of our family. So, yeah, that was awesome. So once you decided it, we were just like, yeah, let's do it. Right. So when was it you guys really came to that decision? It was late last year.
Yeah. So it was like,
it was after the respite here.
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
Well, yeah. So it was like October timeframe. Basically, when we talked about it, and then we're like, okay, what's the next step? And we talked to you guys and stuff. And we're like, well, let's just see, if this really is God moving this, then, other things will start to fall in place as well. And so basically I reached out to Seth and said, hey, I didn't mention anything about us wanting to potentially adopt him. I just said that for us, we needed to make sure before we move forward with anything that he was going to be good, safe in our family, and our other kids were going to do well. And so I just offered to him, I was like, hey, would you, I know you got a lot on your hands. Would you want at any point in time for us to maybe do some respite care to give you a break? And then I think it was literally like a week after I texted him that. I didn't know at that time when I texted him, he was already out of town for a family situation and he was going to have to leave again. Mm-hmm. And so basically once he got back, he immediately, a few days later, was like, yeah, I actually need somebody to take him for
10 days.
like 10 days while I go back up to deal with some family stuff. And so that was just one more affirmation for us of like, wow, this kind of happened really quick, and things started moving. After that, after we did the 10-day respite care, which all, you know, it went really well. It went way better than we were expecting.
It wasn't easy, but
yeah, not at all.
He fit in with our children and with our family really well. The boys played together so well. Because our oldest biological son is like 7 months younger than him, and they just did all the superhero stuff all the time, the whole time. So it was just obvious that he fit in well with everyone, which isn't necessarily like a requirement, but it was definitely something that showed us like, yeah, this would work, and the Lord is gonna just orchestrate this beautifully in our family. So
Well, it's just kind of that whole thing. I mean, I remember in our first journey when we thought we were going to adopt from Kenya, being over there and holding the boy that we really thought we were going to get to adopt, and God said no. And, and that was a God thing. We know it. But I remember just holding him, and part of our process was going, okay, God, like I'm asking you to tell me, like I'm holding, like just, show me. And, it was different with Daniel because we obviously we only knew him by pictures and video, to know him. But, in this situation, you had the same opportunity to kind of interact with him and just go, hey, is this your will? Like, we feel like he's our family. Is this for real? It makes a lot of sense to me. I'm kind of that person looking for God to speak in multiple ways, and experiencing that has been a large part of our family for a long time. You've been a part of that, Victoria, when God was calling us to different places, going to visit, seeing God at work. And so I kind of very much saw it like that, because we knew you guys were hosting him. We knew what you were praying about, and we were just praying for you in that. So,
yeah. So after that, we said that just to each other, do you think we should pursue adoption with him? And then talk to you guys, and we're all kind of a go for that. So we got in touch with the adoption coordinator for his case, because it was already post TPR at that point, which means that there's not really a lot standing in your way at that point of taking him. The only thing for us was that I was quite pregnant at that point. In like November, December, I was like 7 or 8 months pregnant, I think. And so for me, just like physically, I just knew that we needed to wait until after I gave birth and kind of had like a month or two to settle in with our new baby. So when we technically like started the home study process for our adoption, because that's separate from a foster care home study, you have to have a whole other one for adoption. When we started that, it was just like we were very open, like we are all in, like we want him to join our family, we want him to be our son, but we do have to wait for him to come to our house until after this other kid joins our family, or is already there, but joins the outside world. So yeah, but at that point we were like, it was happening we were all in. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, so what, all right. So that was, you really agreed. It was probably October or November of last year,
November,
right? Of 2022. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then he did, though. It seems quite quick, especially after you've been through the international, that it was April, that his adoption was finalized. But,
for August.
What year? what month is it now? No, it was April, wasn't it?
No, he moved in May and then was adopted in August.
Okay, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Well, yeah, I missed it. Yeah, so the foster adoption process. What were the greatest challenges in that?
I think, it's really hard to say for us, because our experience was, I'd say it's textbook. It was better than textbook. He got placed with us May 1st, and he was adopted by August 16th, 17th.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so, and that does not happen. And I attribute a lot of that to our adoption case manager.
Yeah.
She was amazing, and she was so awesome.
Yeah, the Lord just put everyone involved in our adoption was like, he just put all of the best people to do it. Like our adoption home study went extremely quickly. Our adoption coordinator worked so fast and had everything in like before the deadlines were even like that week, like, which is just unheard of. It was very smooth in terms of like the actual process. Paperwork is still a lot. There's a lot to go through.
Well, even with the paperwork, like, so the adoption coordinator, she's been in the field for 20 plus years. And she told us, she's had hundreds of cases. And she told us this case, she had the least amount of information on a child. Or this was the case that she had the least amount of information on, because either people weren't doing their job and recording stuff well, or there was issues with like stuff certain documents being across state lines, like where he was born, mom was, who they needed some paperwork from, even though her rights had been terminated. She lives in a different state, but somehow they still managed to get all that stuff done. And I mean, it went very, very quickly. I think the hardest part about I wouldn't even say, and this is just me, Victoria, she's the one who dealt with all this stuff. I just kind of do what I'm told and, take the kids when she needs a break, and do dad duties. But I would say the hardest part of the whole thing was more so like getting to know him and having him, become part of our family versus the actual process of adoption with paperwork and stuff like that. Like that stuff was aggravating and challenging, having, a bunch of different people in and out of our home all the time and trying to schedule that stuff. But
it was still very smooth. So it doesn't happen that way for everyone, of course. But for us, like the actual process of getting our home study and getting him into our house was very, very smooth. So we're extremely grateful for that.
We had a few technical difficulties in there. So if someone's listening or watching this, it might be edited and sound a little weird. But I think we got the gist of everything that you were saying, which was, there were challenges with paperwork. And some of them are unique to foster adoption because there was crossing state lines and multiple kids, all that kind of good stuff. And then, I think we got the rest of that, which was cool. It's so my question for you guys. So I didn't share this when we did our adoption video or our adoption podcast, but it was kind of odd in China. Like we were over there. We met Daniel on a morning, and you're supposed to then go and have the child with you for 24 hours, and you come back the next day and say, yes, we still want to adopt him. And then they do some paperwork. For us, we didn't quite understand what was going on. We met him that morning. We went to lunch. And then they said, oh, if we just go back now, they can finish it, which we were fine with. We didn't need a 24-hour trial period. We knew this was our son, right? But we went back, and honestly, it was just signing some papers. And then this notary guy stamped it. And then they were like, all right. We're like, is that it? He's your son. It was kind of like, oh, awesome. Wow. It kind of surprised us. But with you guys, we all got to come into a courtroom and be there while they kind of conducted that, kind of a last minute perfunctory, interview, because they had already approved you, but for the judge to hear, and then I remember that judge just pronouncing him, your son, and saying, and forever, I can't remember the exact words, but Jonathan Liam Stapp. And so what was it like for you guys to hear him pronounce your son like that?
Yeah, I mean, it was really cool. Like, I don't know, it kind of equates to like when you get married almost, because it's all very legal, like with the adoption, of course, but like everything that the judge was saying was, like he will now and forever be known as Jonathan Liam Stapp. And he like kind of lists out like, he'll be entitled to the same, what was it?
the same rights and
to the same rights and benefits as so the same rights and benefits as if he were born to you, and he's also like entitled to obligations the same as like your biological children. But it's all very legal like stuff that he's saying, but it was also just beautiful because it's just saying like he is legitimately like our son now. So I don't know, I thought it was just amazing, and just I was so excited for him just to have that security that now we can say like you are with us forever, like you're not going to have to go anywhere else, like you have a family and we are going to love you for the rest of your life. I don't know, it was very cool.
I'd say for me, my feelings in that moment were probably a little bit different. Like it's definitely like, for me, it was more like kind of a relief that like, you know, until that actually happens and until the judge actually rules and says, you know, this is now your child, like, you know, there's still people coming in and out of our home, and more so, not for us, like it's an inconvenience, it's, you know, annoying, but more so for him, like while that is happening, you know, that's what he's been used to for his however many years in the system he actually was. So he can't actually feel safe 100% in our home and secure until, you know, there's like, until that happens and people are no longer coming. And so for me, the main feeling I had in that moment was more relief, like, okay, we're done with this. I mean, a lot of people have like really emotional, like, oh, in that moment I started crying and everything. Like my feeling, you know, what's that thing they say in some marriage ceremonies, what God has joined together, let no man put asunder or whatever. I already knew, you know, God had shown us already just by how the process went that God had joined him to our family already. And so I didn't need a judge to say, oh, this is your son, because I already knew it in my heart that had happened and that was going to happen. So all that to say, you know, it was definitely an amazing thing, you know, to experience. But I'd say, you know, my feelings in that moment was more so relief than anything. I'm like, okay, we can finally be done with this part and move on with our lives as Jonathan as our son. So
is that, I mean, until the moment the judge does that and actually signs that paper, a lot of things can stop the process. Family member emerges, you know, things like that can actually jump in the way. So yeah, it's cool to hear you guys just share about that relief, you know, of actually hearing it and it being, you know, legal. It was already real. I like how you shared that. It was already a reality to you, but when it was finally legal, then there's, I guess, kind of that relaxation of, okay, wow, nothing can stop this now. And I think he pretty much said, I remember that judge says, like, nobody can reverse this now. Like, this is your son. So, oh, wow. Well, that is cool. What have been some of the biggest challenges since adoption? So let me say this, because I had more experience with Liam now, Jonathan, before you guys started meeting him. I mean, this is a high energy boy. And he does not stop. Like, I mean, when we had him for like, you know, full days, it was like, whoa. Like, it doesn't matter how late he stayed up the night before, how early he woke up in the morning. He did not stop. But I mean, it's also his personality, you always saw this huge heart in him. And it came through, you know, even, you know, this isn't an episode about trauma and trauma care, but you knew there was the behaviors that were happening weren't because of an evil heart. I mean, other than, you know, other than us all being a part of the fall. I mean, let's don't get into that, but there was this huge heart behind it that was so beautiful. But I know there've been challenges. What have been some of your challenges since adoption?
Yeah, well, obviously, it's a really huge transition bringing any child into your family, but especially having kind of back-to-back transitions, because we had our youngest son and then brought Jonathan in. So honestly, physically, it's just been pretty exhausting because there is a lot of energy in the house. And especially like with Jonathan coming in, he brought a lot of energy, and then our other kids just kind of match that energy now. And so it's just honestly crazy most of the time. So just, yeah, so that's been a challenge. And also he had some just hard behaviors, especially in the beginning, and they kind of like cycle back around. But he hit a lot and kicked a lot and kind of like spat a lot at us when he first came in, just getting used to our boundaries and our rules and stuff. So working through a lot of that and just having to find like creative and constructive ways to deal with those behaviors and keep everyone safe, but also still be building connection with him, because like he's, still very new to our family even now, but especially like in those first weeks, like he doesn't know us, he's only been here for like a day. And so I would say that's probably been the biggest challenge, is how to discipline and disciple him well, while also being just intentional to build that connection and attachment with him as we're doing those things.
And
yeah, I'd say
because, well, I was going to say this and then you add, but one of the things you're pointing out, Victoria, part of the importance too for based relational intervention, TBRI, is because it is incredibly difficult to discipline a new family member like that, train them while trying to build trust at the same time. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's great. So, but there are people out there way smarter than all of us, right, who've studied this and have developed techniques and things to help us do that. And so you guys have done that beautifully, I would say. And I know I'm a little biased, but I think that you guys have done that beautifully, and we see such progress in him. So interrupt you, Alec.
No, you're good. It was lagging a little bit, so I didn't hear you start talking. I'd say the biggest challenge for me so far has been, and it's not just with me, this is common across the board for anybody who's ever brought a child in their home, is, that connection doesn't happen immediately, especially when you have other biological kids in your home. Like, it's not exactly the same. And so it takes actual real effort, at times, to really intentionally deal with a situation in a loving way, and really try and get the most out of that situation, whether it, there's discipline involved of, to whatever extent. Like, that's a little bit different, with a kid who is new to your home, that you have a connection with to an extent, because, he's our son, but he's only been in our home for, even at this point, like 6 months, I think. And so it's not the same, and it's definitely not as easy at times as it is with some of our biological kids, because we have, our oldest, we've had, by the end of this month, 5 years, that we have had him in our home, and we have trained him and loved on him. And so it is really different. And that's something people don't talk about a lot. Like, it is a choice that we have to continue to make, to love him and choose to, remind ourselves that, we have to put in a little extra effort, and we have to deal with this differently than what we would with maybe our own kids, because, he is our own kid, but you know what I mean.
I know.
But yeah, there's that aspect. It has been very challenging at times, and I would definitely say that's probably been the hardest thing for me, is
making that choice to choose to love him the same way that we show love to our other kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say, and I think that's probably, a big part of every adoption, because, man, especially when, we hadn't met our son before, we'd seen pictures, we'd seen videos, we'd already fallen in love with him, but it still feels foreign at first, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, really building relationship, it's just, I don't even know that there's a way to do that feeling. It's just different, I haven't felt any other context. I love my son, and yet this feels as I'm trying to get to know him. And it's just weird. It's hard to even describe. So how? I mean, you've kind of answered this a little bit already, but how has Jonathan blended into your family?
Just really well. I don't know. It's yeah, by the grace of God, he just fits in super well with our family. He's precious, like you said earlier. His heart is just really sweet. So he honestly is like looking out for our other kids a lot of times. Like if he like sneaks into the kitchen and like gets an extra piece of cheese or something like while I'm cooking, he'll be like, "Oh, can I give one to Malachi and Danielle?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure." So he's really sweet. He plays really hard, and the other like they all play really hard together. They do fight because they are siblings. That does happen a good bit. But he just, I don't know, he just fits in really well. He's very precious.
Yeah,
it's a blessing.
I think one of the fears I had is since he, hasn't been in he has been in foster care with other kids, but it's still different than being in a family with other kids your age. And when we first had him, whether it was in respite care or when he first was placed with us, there was like a lot of highly selfish tendencies, which are very natural to somebody in his situation, especially coming from a kid who's had everything taken away from him already. He's going to be obsessive and very, greedy about things, I guess. But that all, like, he still has those tendencies because he's 5. But it has been incredible to see, Ryan, you mentioned, like, it's very obvious that he, has such a huge heart. Like, he is so, I would even say he matches or at a lot of times is even better than our own kids at like loving and sharing. Or I said my own again, our biological kids. He does better than them a lot of times now in sharing, like Victoria said. Like, there'll be situations where, there's not enough of something to go around, and he is like the first one to share or give up something of his own. And so I would say it has been a God thing 100%, how quickly he has just meshed with our family. It's like he's been here all along, honestly.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's beautiful. Oh my God. So as we end tonight, what has God taught you guys through this process? And I mean, you can cover foster and adoption, whatever. What has God taught you guys through this?
Go
ahead, man.
Yeah. So for me, the Lord through this whole thing, through foster care, adoption, he's just taught me how just if I am trusting in him and following after him, he will literally supply all of the things that I need. So whether it be extra patience for this frustrating situation or physical strength because I'm pregnant and I feel terrible and I need to be able to also care for all of these extra kids. Like, he has just met every single need that I've had during this time in such a just vivid way. So it's just been a real blessing to see. Like, I wake up this morning, I feel like I can't do anything constructive, but then he gives me the energy and the strength to be able to still care for everyone well. Yeah, so just relying on him is never a mistake, and he will provide everything that we need. So
yeah, for me, there's too many to count. But I know one way in particular is we've been taught a lot through adoption. I think I was taught a lot more through foster care than anything. And some of that, we didn't get into any of the situations we had, but, we've had, for the most part, pretty easy ones. We had one really challenging one with a girl that was only in our home for, two nights, really. And she had just been removed. And that was that was really for me, at least, I don't know for Victoria, that was like the eye-opening case for me, where we, we had Aria for 3 months. That was, she was an infant, so there wasn't a whole lot of, it was hard in that we were tired and we were putting a lot of effort into it, but we didn't have a whole lot of, obviously, behavioral things. And so when we got this little girl, that was when like reality of what we were actually involved in set in. And so I think God really showed me in that situation, even, with how short it was, just how good I actually have it. And I think we all have very selfish tendencies. I know I can speak for myself, especially a lot of entitlement at times. And I think foster care really showed me, made me more grateful. And hopefully that will continue.
Incredibly proud of you guys. We know that, Alec, that your parents are. We didn't even have time to up because they continue to foster and adopt. And so family gatherings are huge. When we all get together to celebrate Jonathan's adoption, I mean, it was party central. It's awesome. But thrilled. I hear them playing in the next room as we record this. They're all the kids are over here. And so after this, we're going to all go share a family meal with all 4 of your kids. You can hear them right there. And that's just beautiful. So thank you for sharing that beautiful story of how God worked in that. I'm proud of you being a part of this tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today for part 2 of Alec and Victoria's adoption story. We are re-recording the end of this if it sounds or looks a little different, because you may have recognized there were a lot of technical difficulties in that one on my end, which is crazy. So we were actually recording in the same house, but that's the way it goes. But I hope that you were able to really hear the message of just how God worked miraculously through Alec and Victoria's adoption. We are so proud of them and how God has called them and how they've responded to engage in this ministry of looking after the fatherless and putting the lonely in homes and being God's answer to that promise that he made in his word. Thank you so much for listening, for watching today. If you're watching this on YouTube, we ask that you would help us spread the message of what we do by liking and subscribing to this video, making a comment underneath. We ask that if you're watching this on Facebook, that you would like and comment and share. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, then please subscribe and like it, or whatever it is that they let you do on the one that you're listening on. It just helps us spread the message. Heart of the Bride exists to unite the body of Christ around the world, to fulfill the command of James 1:27. And so it takes all of us to do that. So help us spread the word so that together we can serve the fatherless around the world and meet the call that God has placed on us. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.